Welcome everybody to our community meeting about the Choice Neighborhood Initiative Implementation Grant. This is a community meeting for our College Court residents in particular. My name is Lindsay St. Arnold Bell, and I'm the Associate Director at Near West Side Partners. If we could go to the next slide, please. So we're going to do a little introduction to the folks that we have here on the phone, as well as a brief overview of what you can expect during this meeting. So as I mentioned, I'm Lindsay St. Arnold Bell with Near West Side Partners. Joining us from the Near West Side Partners team is Anna Weirbrick and Barb Scotty, as well as Pat Kennelly from the Marquette Center for Peacemaking. We also have members of the Torty Gallus team on the phone and members from HACM, including Ken Barbo, that you'll hear from later today. We are going to be reviewing some of the proposed physical changes to College Court. Ken will be talking a little bit about some of the relocation strategies and reoccupancy plans. And then Anna will spend some time talking about the neighborhood improvement projects that are part of the transformation plan. At the end of our meeting, we will have some time for discussion and questions. If you have questions as we move along, feel free to put those in the chat box and we will answer them as we get to that end. Next slide, please. A quick reminder for any virtual call that you are on, do try to find a quiet place with strong internet connection so you can hear us well and we can hear and see you well. Do your best to not to multitask. I know it can be really, really hard, especially at the end of the day when we have a lot on our plates, but we do appreciate your time and attention, and we'll try to be as efficient as possible so that you can get on to the rest of your life. And then please be patient with us and be patient with yourself as we navigate this very strange world. Next slide, please. So just again, some general housekeeping rules. Everybody's going to be muted during the presentation. Please use the chat box to put in your questions and we will answer them at the end of the meeting. If for whatever reason we can't get to your question during the meeting, we will be following up with you. We do have your email address if you've logged in, or if you include your name, we can certainly connect with you after the meeting. When you, at the end of the meeting, unmute yourself, just introduce yourself, speak clearly, and we are recording this meeting. So it can be used for any of your fellow residents who haven't been able to attend. So by attending, you are agreeing to be recorded. All right, so next slide. I think this takes us right into our housing portion. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Next slide, please. Okay, so for many of our College Court residents who have joined us today, you may be familiar with the Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant that we have been working on. This is a program that is administered by HUD, and it has a comprehensive approach to neighborhood transformation. So we look at housing. How do we take public housing and turn it into housing that is supportive of the people that utilize it? How do we ensure that people are well supported in the community? And how do we ensure that our neighborhoods have the kind of amenities and the qualities that make it a great place for all people who live here? Next slide. What we're here talking about today is the implementation grant. This is kind of like the second part of the Choice Neighborhood implementation planning grant. So first we created the plan, and now we're looking to fund the plan. And what we can expect over the course of 2021, 5 C&I grants will be awarded. The grant amount is up to $35 million. So some of that money can be used for supportive services like case management, which is what Ken will be talking about. Some of those funds can be used for investments into uh, physical things in the neighborhood. So think like parks or, maybe like some streetscaping or something like that. And then the rest of the funds are used to revitalize and transform our housing. Next slide. So this is a very quick timeline for all of us. The grant is due in just 1 month on December 16th. The finalists will be announced in early 2021. There will be site visits in spring, and then the awards will be announced in May and June. Next slide. So you will probably see a lot of different faces over the course of the next couple weeks as we pull this all together. And the team really consists of the City of Milwaukee, the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee, so HACM, Near West Side Partners, and our friends at Marquette University. Our anchor institutions, so that's Advocate Aurora Health, Marquette University, Miller Coors, Harley Davidson, and Potawatomi Business Development Corp., and then the Redevelopment Authority as well. And the Torty Gallus team is also helping HACM with that. And then you are our key stakeholders. So it's residents of the Near West Side, residents of College Court, citizens of Milwaukee, our advisory councils, our schools, our churches, and all the businesses and nonprofit organizations that kind of make up our community and our assets in our community. Next slide. So, these planning grants really have a focus on a community-based approach. And we've seen a lot of this in the work that we've done in the development of our transformation plan. So, we've come together through community meetings, through resident council meetings, through focus groups to really analyze and understand what's working well, what changes you would like to see, and what opportunities you think exist for our neighborhood and for our housing. And you can expect this this grant process to be very similar. For those of you who were around back in, I think it was 2017 or 2018, we held a series of community meetings and workshops. We heard from our stakeholders, from our residents and our public officials, and we helped to pull together the application that got us to where we are today. We are going to be pursuing that same process now. Next slide, please. So to kind of kick
Thank you, Lindsay. That was great.
Thank you, Murphy.
So Lindsay did a great job. And again, that last slide on community-based process, Near West Side has done a great job over the last couple of years. But as we said at the outset of this meeting, we are a little bit more challenged maybe than usual this year because we are trying to still gather that input. We're very committed to that input and that dialogue. But we all obviously need to be safe and healthy and do that remotely. So that is part of what this process is this evening. And we'll talk about next steps in that as we work towards the application on December 16th, as Lindsay said. And I'm going to talk in a little bit more detail about the housing plan for that. Go ahead, Brian. And the housing plan is the sticks and bricks, the physical housing within this much larger Near West Side neighborhood that you've been talking about and has been discussed as part of the Near West Side Planning Grant Transformation Plan. And that area is bounded to the north by Vliet Street and to the south by I-94. To the east by I-43, and to the west by I-75. So it is a huge area with some distinct strengths and some distinct challenges. Also, just as we're kind of locating the geography, if you think about 27th Street and running north south, and Highland running east west, that's sort of the center of this area, and it is a little bit larger, I'd say, than the planning grant boundary initially anticipated, and mostly in its northeast quadrant, really north of Highland, and that's for a couple of reasons. That's to pick up on some of the challenges and to make a wider impact. So some of the big strengths are the anchors that Lindsay mentioned, amongst others: Marquette University, Advocate Aurora, Miller Coors, Harley Davidson, and the Potawatomi, the Forest County Potawatomi. Those are real strengths to the neighborhood, and I think the efforts, and clearly the efforts that Near West Side has made over the last couple of years, and even reaching further back, are real strengths in the neighborhood. And then the educational anchors: Marquette University, Milwaukee Academy of Sciences, many other schools in the area are real strengths to the Near West Side. You also see on this map the two target sites that we are working on for the Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant. So centering on College Court, which we had many discussions about that and actually applied for an implementation grant in 2017. So there at around 35th and Highland, the two senior towers, obviously the residents that we're talking to this evening, all one bedroom senior apartments in those two 13-story towers. HUD and Choice Neighborhoods likes to also impact family, have revitalization of family sites. So we have incorporated a family site of 90 units up at Meadow Village, which is also an affordable housing, low income project that is being renovated even as we speak. We have a meeting with them tomorrow, but that is the other orange target site that you see in part of the reasoning for expanding the boundary. So some of the challenges are, the investment and the resources and the leveraging and the partnership over such a large area. Those are both challenges and advantages. And then I'll say fitting things into the specific HUD rules and Choice Neighborhoods kind of check their boxes so that we can secure this $35 million funding, and doing that in a compressed time frame. If we go to the next slide, you'll see some of the other areas that we're looking at. So impacting, making a difference on College Court is one thing. The rehab up at Meadow Village is another 90 units of new renovated family housing that will make a big impact. What are the other areas and sites that we can look at to make a larger impact in the neighborhood and supply new and renovated housing to meet the needs of the residents, of the neighbors, and of the Near West Side? And that means mixed income housing as well. So just to talk math for a moment, there are 251 apartments at College Court. There are 90 at Meadow Village. So that's 341 very low income affordable housing. We want to make sure we're coming back with 341 housing units, homes that meet the needs of those 341. And then we also want to introduce workforce housing and some market rate housing. And to be honest, when you look at the market rate in Near West Side is essentially workforce housing at those income levels as well. So there's only so much room on Meadow Village, and that's all renovation. So we're not building anything new in between existing houses there. We're actually trying to take College Court and introduce new housing there that might not have quite as many units as are there now. So we're looking for other sites to pick up those 341 that don't go back on Meadow Village and College Court, plus the additional, call it another half, another 341 units of workforce and market rate housing. And this is an analysis map of lots of different potential opportunities for doing that throughout the neighborhood, throughout the Near West Side. And if we go to the next slide, we'll zero in on, on a few of those sites, starting with the target sites and then going to some of those opportunity sites. So here is College Court. You know it well. We met and talked about it extensively in 2017 as well, and it has some challenges. For a senior property, it doesn't really meet the handicapped accessible needs, and so that needs to get addressed. There's not a lot of open space, either for active recreation or passive, just kind of enjoy being outside in the park kind of space. It's a relatively old building or pair of buildings at this point with inefficient kind of systems, meaning the air conditioning, the heating, the plumbing, and those don't really meet current energy standards as well. Some of the exterior materials have some structural challenges. The air conditioning and the elevators, all things that you know better than I do. So addressing that at College Court as a target site is one of the primary objectives of the housing strategy. If we go to the next slide, we'll see what we are thinking about for College Court. So this would be a 4-story apartment building with a mix of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments to meet a 2-bedroom need that's not met today. Amenity space and community meeting space, which is in short supply today, and on-site kind of administrative and management place, and more of the scale of the neighborhood, I would say. So this is a 4-story building with about 100 units, 112, you'll see is the count here, 112 apartments. So back to that 251 number, we've got 130 other apartments we know we need to take care of and eat in other parts of the neighborhood as well. If we go to the next slide, the other target site, the family site, if College Court is the senior site, the family site is Meadow Village up at 17th and north side of Vliet. And that is actually recently acquired by a company called Common Bond. And they have also recently started their renovations and rehabilitation at Meadow Village. So there are 90 apartments, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms here that are being renovated for the families that live there as we speak, and that is the other target site. But you can get a sense of what that what Meadow Village is like from these photos. We go to the next slide. We'll talk about some of the other what we're calling around State and 23rd. Where Milwaukee Academy of Sciences is, where City on a Hill is, where Kilbourne Lofts are, is a place where we think we can do some of this replacement housing that, again, wasn't made up with the new construction numbers on College Court, but also some of this workforce and market rate housing. Some of that can go above Milwaukee Academy of Sciences in the hospital wing that is renovated and made into housing. Some of that could go into new construction, twins and smaller scale housing. There could be an opportunity for some recreation facilities. There could be opportunity for other new construction in parts of the old hospital that were not occupied. So that's part of the housing strategy too. Again, impacting other sites and providing other new housing opportunities. And there are other clusters, other areas around that we are looking at. If you go to the next slide, please. And you can see that some on Wisconsin and 28th, some again clustered around Kilbourne and 27th. And if you go to the next slide, then that's a bit about the housing strategy. We'll talk next steps at the towards the end, but we want to come back to you with some more detail and numbers about what's going to go into the final application. We're planning to do that in a couple weeks, and I'm going to turn it over to Ken to talk about the people portion of the Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant application.
Hello, so this is Ken Barbeau. I'm with the Housing Authority of the State of Milwaukee, and Choice Neighborhood is not just about transforming housing, it's also about transforming people and helping them in achieving their goals. And so we're doing this in a number of ways. Next slide. You know, when Murphy Antoine and Torty Gallus talked about the physical renovations of College Court, because in this plan, we are actually tearing down the current College Court towers and building new housing. We are going to be doing relocation of the residents, and that can be scary. We have done this a number of times. If you look at our Cherry Court development, our Convent Hill development, West Lawn Gardens is a huge development where we're doing this. We have a relocation coordinator that works one-on-one with every resident and with a case manager and talks through what their options are. Where are we going to relocate them? So this isn't something that we say, oh, in a week, by the way, you're going to be moving. This is something we work with you and plan with you on. Options that we work with you on might include if we have vacant units in other public housing apartments. So for example, maybe we have some vacant units in Arlington Court, which is another one of our high-rise buildings. That might be an option for folks, or any other of our buildings. Most people will probably end up using a rent assistance voucher to do relocation. I know a number of you are familiar with, it's called Section 8. You may know it as Housing Choice Voucher. You may know it as a Section 8 rent assistance voucher. It is a voucher that you take to the private market and you can rent an apartment in the private market and only pay 30% of your income as rent, the same rent that you're paying right now for most of you. And so that is another option that might be something that we use for this relocation. Again, we work one-on-one with you. We help you in terms of your search. We give you possibilities, and we actually will hire the mover. We're going to provide the moving supplies, boxes and tape, and we hire moving companies that will help you move both away from College Court and then when you return back to a renovated apartment, assuming you want to move back. And so we cover those costs. We're relocating you for the convenience of redoing the building, so that this cost is on us. And any additional costs that a resident might incur, maybe you have to pay a fee because you have cable and you have to reestablish it in your new apartment. Those are costs we also cover. So these are things that are covered under the relocation policy that we have. Next slide. Every resident has a right to return to a renovated apartment, whether it's in the College Court site or one of the other locations close by that Murphy had talked about, where we're thinking of these replacement units. We have 251 apartments right now in College Court. And if we're building about 110 to 120 of them back on site, that means an additional 130 or so are going to be elsewhere in the neighborhood. And so you have a right to return to a renovated replacement unit if you want, provided you're compliant with your lease terms. And so everybody can move back once the building is completed. If there's an accessible unit, those are prioritized for those who need that accessibility accommodation. Again, we can't promise that you're going to go back to the building that's going to be on the exact same location at College Court right now, because some of the replacement units are going to be close by, a couple blocks away in the near west side. But we can promise that you have the right to return to a renovated replacement unit. And we work with you, just as we worked with you on the relocation out, we work with you closely on the coming back to College Court. So that is something, and we pay for that move as well, coming back. So if you don't want to come back, you can keep your voucher, or you can stay living in another high rise where you are. But if you do want to come back to a brand new apartment, that's a possibility for you. Next slide. The next two slides go into the relocation and the reoccupancy for Meadow Village. I don't know, do you want to go through this quickly, Ray, in preparation for tomorrow, or do you want, I don't know if you're on the call. Well, it's not really relevant for College Court, so I'm thinking we go past these two slides because tonight is just College Court. Section 3 is a HUD policy, which talks about helping low-income people, helping them get employed, and helping businesses that employ them. And so we have a certain goals that we have to meet on these employment and training opportunities. So if there's any residents out there who are interested in and skilled in the construction trades, we are going to be having job opportunities during this construction. You'd let us know. There's an online resident registry, and we can help you complete that and get on the registry, which provides us a list of what your skills are. And then we work with contractors to link them to qualified low-income individuals who want to work in construction. So that is a possibility as well. Besides that, beyond the construction, we also hire for other jobs beyond just this choice neighborhood. So anyone who is interested in employment, this is an opportunity for them. I just want to make that plug. Next slide. So on the people side, really the guts of it is helping meet the residents' needs. You know, a couple years ago, if you live in College Court, you know that we did a survey, a questionnaire. It took probably a half hour to an hour to complete, but we did a survey trying to figure out what the needs are of the residents at College Court. We've done the same thing at Meadow Village, that other housing development that Murphy talked about. So we're looking at what are the needs that folks have, and we're trying to build our strategies around that to meet those needs. Case management is required. We are going to be hiring case managers at College Court. It'll probably be through Lutheran Social Services, who you are familiar with. We are going to work with them so that they would meet with any resident who needs services, try to identify what the services are that they need and link them to those services. We have strategies that are around employment. While at College Court, a lot of the residents are retired or can't work for a variety of health reasons, others can and want to. And so anybody who wants to find employment, we want to help them along that path. And that can include job training. It could include help with their resume, help with the job search, trying to identify what skills people have and where they want to be in the employment market. And just trying to get them into the job and get them into something that can build into a career. Some folks just want a basic job. Other folks really want a career. And so we identify what those needs are. We'll be doing the same thing with those residents at Meadow Village. On asset building, some of you are familiar with our Make Your Money Talk program. It's a financial education program that really tells people how to manage their money, how to build a budget, how to build up savings. And so those are asset building strategies. We would promote that more heavily at College Court, making sure that we even have some classes held at College Court, so that people can learn how to manage credit and how to deal with a checking account. So those are things that we want to include in our strategies. We also will help people, because we have a senior population and a population with a number of disabled individuals, healthcare is a big factor. We have a lot of folks living in College Court who have chronic health conditions. We have some, while most are connected to a doctor and almost all have health insurance, a lot of them don't always go to a doctor. They go maybe to an emergency room for care. And so we want to try and make sure that they're using healthcare and know what options they have in the near West Side neighborhood. There are very good options close by. We also want to make sure that they're linked to things like dental care. I know that based on our survey, only about 50% of the residents go see a dentist on a regular basis. And so that's also a need that people have. So those are healthcare strategies that we want to build into this plan. Next slide. On the education strategies, and I know it doesn't impact College Court residents directly, but it does impact the rest of the neighborhood and Meadow Village, that other housing development. We're working with Milwaukee Public Schools and other schools that are in the near West Side. There are very good quality schools in the near West Side, very good quality early childhood education. And those, most of you a lot of you have had children, and that access to quality education is really the key to them moving forward in their lives. And so we want to improve that access, make sure that people know what options they have in education and help those children go from cradle to career. So that's another strategy that we're working on. Also, there's also a possibility here of putting some money away out of the grant, if we get this grant, for an endowment trust fund. What that is some money that's put away and could sustain services beyond the 5-year grant period. So possibility of some services after that. We have to find some matching funds to do that, but that's another thing that we'd like to do to keep sustaining this program. The one other thing I just want to reiterate, this is a grant we are applying for. We don't know if we're going to get this grant or not. We are very hopeful that we will. If we don't get it, we'll probably be trying again. But everything we're talking about is, geared on getting some of this money through this grant. So I just wanted to remind folks of that. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the Near West Side partners to talk a little bit about neighborhood.
Thanks, Ken. So I'm Anna Wyrick. I'm the Choice Neighborhood and Commercial Corridor Development Administrator with Near West Side Partners. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about the neighborhood projects that'll be going alongside the housing and people sections that Murphy and Ken have talked about. So next slide, please. So with the neighborhood funding, we have the opportunity to put into place several critical community improvement projects. So I'm really excited to tell everybody about these. These are projects that will bring physical change to the community. And one of the big questions is, how are these the projects that were selected? So these projects have been identified over the last few years based on surveys, focus groups, and other ideas submitted by residents throughout the planning grant process, as well as just over the years as Near West Side Partners has worked with residents across the Near West Side. So first and foremost, one of the things that we hear most often from residents is improving the retail offerings in the neighborhood. And to do that, we need to be able to support small businesses in developing their commercial space, both internally and externally. So we have a lot of vacant storefronts across the Near West Side. And in order for a small business to move in and open up their shop, they need some help to restore the outside of the building and to really put some investment into the space so that they can open up and have a welcoming environment for residents and visitors to come in and shop or grab a quick bite to eat and just really enjoy additional amenities that the Near West Side can offer. So this is one of our major projects here, is just improving the retail offerings in the neighborhood. Up next, we also have streetscaping improvements. So if you've driven down 27th Street recently, you've probably noticed that there are some plastic bollards lining the street now. These were placed in with help from the city to improve traffic. We know a lot of people tend to drive in the parking lane. And so installing these bollards is a way to calm traffic and improve safety for the streets. So we have additional measures that we will be putting in, especially along 27th Street to improve the traffic safety in that area. Up next, we have a project for housing stabilization. So this project is aimed at homeowners across the Near West Side who need a little help restoring their front porch or their roof or something on the exterior of their home. We know that in the Near West Side, we have some of the oldest housing stock in the entire city of Milwaukee, which brings a lot of character to the neighborhood, but also means that there's a lot of upkeep that needs to happen to ensure that that housing stock stays at a high quality. And so that there's more homeowners in the neighborhood, but also supporting the people that live in the neighborhood to really be able to afford to make those improvements for their own safety and for the safety of others. So with this housing stabilization program, we'll be offering grants to low to middle income homeowners to make improvements to the exterior of their home. And then last here, we have a couple of placemaking projects, revamping some green space in the area. So first, the Hank Aaron State Trail entrance at Park Hill and 33rd. We actually have an entrance to the Hank Aaron State Trail that very few people know about. And so we want to make this trailhead more inviting, adding lighting and signage and some art to the area to really show people how close we are to the great trail that can be used for biking, walking, exercise of any kind, and really just increase the level of activity in the Near West Side. And then second, kind of our last project here is looking at developing a park, a green space of some sort for the redevelopment site. So as Murphy kind of talked about, there's several locations we're looking at for where the redevelopment sites for the housing portion will be. And as we're trying to identify those sites, we're also looking at identifying areas that would be good for a park, so that there could be a walking trail and a playground, some picnic tables and maybe a gazebo, really just developing a outdoor green space for people to use, to gather together, as well as to exercise and just spend some time outside. So these are our neighborhood projects. They are meant to serve not only the College Court residents and our Meadow Village residents as well, but really be impactful for the neighborhood as a whole. So we're excited about these, and we'll keep working to develop them more so that we can bring them to reality. Next slide, please.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So this is really about, we want to hear from you, right? It is not as easy to hear from you doing it this way on a Zoom call as it would be sitting down at a card table in the community room at College Court or in the library at College Court. So, but this is intended to be a discussion, and we would like to facilitate that as much as possible. If you are seeing this as a recording, then I'm sure you're going to have questions, but there is an opportunity now for you to weigh in either through the chat or through just unmuting and participating that way. I know that if we could go to the next slide, Brian, some of the things that we talked about College Court specifically back in 2017, and I mentioned this when we were talking about it during the housing strategy portion of College Court, that the need to meet accessibility requirements and introduce universal design components that would really make aging in College Court and aging in the apartments provided easier, whether you were mobility impaired in a wheelchair or a scooter or otherwise. So that is something I know that we heard very clearly then. I imagine that it is still a priority today. It is certainly something we are thinking a lot about. Amenity space for a lot of these great people activities that Ken talked about, the community supportive services, the case management, where does that happen? Are there physical places for that to happen in the College Court replacement? And also recreational opportunities, either inside or also through open space. New plumbing, new heating, new air conditioning, all of that, and new water supply, making that very low energy and affordable per unit. And then certainly affordability just as an overall concept of anything that happens for College Court residents. So the idea that your rent today that is based on your income is going to be the same as your rent in a revitalization. It's also based on your income, and the fact that you're in a new or revitalized or renovated apartment versus the existing College Court doesn't matter if your income is the same. And then the overall improvement of I'll call the neighborhood presence. So how does this, how does a new College Court, how does a revitalized any development in the Near West Side participate in the larger neighborhood, and again bolster some of those neighborhood improvements that Anna was describing as well. Those are kind of food for thought a little bit. We've got another slide with some other ideas to think about and then kind of next steps, but I'm going to pause for a minute or a few seconds anyway to see if there's any, to let anyone else jump in that has questions or wants to talk about wants, needs, challenges, opportunities with a kind of College Court specific viewpoint maybe. Okay, well, we're kind of monitoring the chat. Again, we'll look for other ways and we'll talk in the next steps about other opportunities, but other ways to get your input when we're all in this kind of remote environment. If we could go ahead to the next slide then, Brian. So some of the things that we might talk about in the larger picture beyond College Court and in some of the other redevelopment opportunities are, what are the other kinds of challenges in the neighborhood? We heard a lot about security and safety in 2017. What are things and aspects of housing and home that make it more livable? We heard a lot about closets and laundry, being able to have easy access to laundry facilities. And how can we help envision all of this and imagine it so that we have a vision that we can deliver on? And what are some other maybe model neighborhoods or other places that you could think of or that we could share and talk about, that could be models for this to again help bolster and shape that vision? The education components, as Ken talked a great deal about that, and I think that clearly is part of this. And as Ken also talked about, all ages, so cradle to career and lifetime learning. Public transportation was again something I know we talked about in 2017. How do we bolster the access to public transportation to be able to get to services, and how do we think about it today in kind of a COVID environment? What are the other opportunities to get to needed services that might not be getting on the bus while we're still in a pandemic? Commercial corridors is something the Near West Side is looking at, and certainly all of this tied to economic development. Go ahead to the next slide. I'll just talk about the next steps. We've got another series of meetings in a couple weeks. We are meeting with the Near West Side larger community tomorrow, November 18th, Wednesday, at lunchtime. And we're actually doing a similar meeting to this tomorrow evening at the same time for the Meadow Village residents. And then 2 weeks from now, so the week after Thanksgiving, we will come back and do a more detailed meeting about what the anticipated, what is actually going into the application in mid-December. So we'll do another College Court meeting 2 weeks from today on Tuesday, December 1st, same time, same bat channel, 5:30. And then the second Meadow Village resident meeting the next day, just like we're doing this sequence this week, and then the larger Near West Side community meeting lunchtime on the 2nd, all gearing up to the application that will be due 2 weeks later. And if we go to the next, I think that's all we had for you today. Again, this will be available as a recording, so you can go back and look at things. You can reach out to us and ask questions. And I've kind of been looking over at the chat and see there's some section 3. Is there anything that Ken or Tony or Maria want to weigh in on here as we conclude?
This is Ken. I will mention one idea that Tony Perez had. We may look at trying to put the presentation on a TV somewhere at College Court, a kiosk or a television where we could play it on a loop.